Welcome, everybody, back to the Friar Talk podcast and YouTube channel. For today's episode, we're going to be talking about Nomar Mazara, him getting the call up to the Padres today, and he is actually batting sixth in the lineup today. So we're going to talk about him a little bit, how he projects into this team. We'll quickly go over Robinson Cano getting waived or DFA'd because that's kind of the corresponding move with this one. And then after that, we'll also get into a quick discussion about some other potential minor leaguers that could get the call up later this season. So, Isaac, what do you feel about Nomar Mazara and the DFAing of Robinson Cano as well? That kind of combination of moves.
I guess I could say that it can't be much worse than Robinson Cano, right? I mean, I sure hope not. And you tell yourself that, but then you realize, like, I don't know, all these really bad depth pieces have ended up actually being really bad for the Padres. And I mean, Nomar Mazara has shown some power. He did really good in the minors, and hopefully that's able to translate. He's hitting sixth today. Matt told me it's kind of weird. You'd think he would be batting like eighth, maybe ninth, but nonetheless, he's batting sixth, and hopefully we get some production out of him. Is he starting in right? I would assume so, right?
Yeah, because Profar's in the lineup.
Yeah, so I would assume, he's going to be starting in right. I don't know, man. I don't know if I should be excited or worried. I think worried because you also got Alcantara in the ninth spot in your lineup, and you're facing the Brewers, who have 2 wins on you, are one of the best teams in baseball right now, and I don't know. It's kind of worrisome, but that's why we've been known that we're gonna have to go after some bats at the trade deadline. Hopefully, we're able to do that. But of course, Robinson Cano wasn't cutting it. It was worth a shot, I guess you could say. I think we knew this was going to happen. Nonetheless, it was worth a shot, seeing if his clubhouse presence, or whatever they want to call it, was worth it. Clearly wasn't. He got let go really fast, and I guess I'll always remember the Robinson Cano era. It was a funny era, a funny time. He was useful for one game, and that's about it. But of course, he should go in the Hall of Fame. But you know how it goes with the PEDs, and what a wonderful time for him in a Padres uniform, right?
Yeah, no, it was pretty funny because I remember when he was getting rumored to get signed, I think we had a live stream and we were talking about it. Like, can you believe that Robinson Cano is being discussed potentially becoming a Padre right now? I just thought it was hilarious that in 2022 that's what's going down. But looking into Nomar Mazara, I think that you're getting a guy that basically was absolutely balling in AAA, hitting 367 with a 641 slugging that he ended up totaling out to over 1,000 OPS. So he was balling out 7 home runs. This is in roughly 130 at bats as well. So he looked really good. However, if you go to his MLB numbers, what you'll find is that 2020, 2021, he played with the White Sox and Tigers. Not really a big time contributor. His numbers weren't very good. However, if you look at the 4 previous years in Texas, he was a solid outfielder. He had like 400, 500 at bats, hit around 250, 260 with a little over a 400 slugging, and then, a mid 700 OPS. So decent numbers, not a ton there, just kind of a depth outfielder. But you look at who the Padres are rolling out in the outfield lately, and first thing that comes to mind to me is this could potentially be like a significant upgrade over the production we've been seeing out of everyone out there, outside of Jurickson Profar, because Jurickson Profar has been a pretty solid contributor for this team early on, both offensively and defensively. So you look at this move, I think it definitely helps the team. He's way more useful than Robinson Cano as is, because Robinson Cano wasn't playing good defense. He wasn't hitting. He hadn't had a hit in his previous 20 at-bats as a Padre. So the move makes sense. It definitely makes sense. But there are also a few other guys in the minor leagues that if Mazara doesn't, ball out when he gets here, or for over like maybe the first couple weeks to a month, he could get moved down as well. Or I don't know if he's out of options, he could get DFA'd. But there's other options too that the Padres could bring up as an extra bat, an extra outfielder. So Isaac, any guys there that you're kind of interested in potentially coming up down the season, whether that be for Nomar Mazara or someone else, or maybe they just kind of forced their way on the roster with their performance?
Brent Rooker's been hitting fantastic. Esteury Ruiz has been hitting fantastic. Luis Campusano is always going to be a highly touted prospect. He keeps hitting good down there in the minors. There's a couple guys that honestly deserve a shot. You could make an argument against Luis Campusano, saying like, since he's a catcher, he's got to be able to be really good on both sides of the ball. And he's definitely not very good on defense as of right now, I think. If somebody's seen any updates on him improving in that area, let me know in the comments. But I haven't seen anything on it. And when we saw him, he wasn't very, very good behind the plate. So, I mean, he's still got to improve in that aspect before I feel confident in calling him up, because I think a catcher has to be good on both sides of the ball. Of course, better on defense and offense, in my opinion, but he does provide the most offensive upside when it comes to our catchers. So you could make an argument that, like, when rosters expand or something like that, you can bring him up. But as of right now, probably just got to keep him working down there to get his catching abilities better. Brent Rooker already has some major league experience. He's gotten quite a few major league at bats. You can go look at his highlights, his bombs. They're honestly, like, they are the upper deck type bombs. They're insane. Now you will have to deal with a bad average. You will have to deal with some strikeout problems, I think. But I mean, he does hit bombs, so I honestly think it was a good guy to pick up in that trade for Taylor Rogers. But yeah, man, those are really the two guys you can even look at Ruiz, but I don't know. I feel like he should just keep getting at bats down there. If Trent Grisham starts to struggle again, I brought it up in the live stream. It was actually really weird because absolutely something neither of us three a part of this expected. Trent Grisham has like a 920 OPS in his last 7 games, which is absurd. So you kind of have to keep letting him go out there and try and figure things out in terms of just hitting in general. But he's been doing good in that aspect. So if he starts to struggle again, I definitely think you can expect to see Ruiz out there, because right now it's kind of weird. The outfield's actually somewhat producing in the past couple games. You look at Azokar, he was producing. Grisham's producing right now. Profar had this cold streak, but he's producing again. So the outfield's looking fine. It's just a matter of you're struggling with catchers, where Jorge Alfaro's average is solid, but he's not getting on base very much. His slugging's okay. Then you look at Austin Nola, you're not really getting much out of Austin Nola. So you're kind of hoping that Campusano was that catcher of the future, but also of the present, because, I mean, having a big catcher upgrade is huge. And Wilson Contreras has been brought up a lot, but realistically, you want to be able to develop this prospect because you're going to have years of control out of him rather than giving him up for somebody that has essentially no control after this season. So, I mean, I don't know, man. I really want Campusano to be called up. I think he deserves that bats, but it's just a matter of how's he gonna look behind the plate. How are pitchers gonna work with him? How are they gonna like working with him? Yeah, man. There's a lot of questions between some of those guys. I think the easiest one to bring up would probably be Rooker, but that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think that those are the three names that I'm really looking at right now for who could get called up. Also worth noting, I don't know if it's official yet, but it sounded like all signs were pointing to Robert Hassel getting promoted to Double-A, because I believe there was a tweet by the Missions that was basically like, "Oh, you're going to see who's on a roster tomorrow," or something like that. But I think that, you look at these guys. I think it was Rooker is probably number one just because he has a little bit of MLB experience. You look at his numbers right now in AAA, and the one thing that's you have to bring up too is AAA numbers are always kind of skewed just because El Paso, the ball absolutely flies in El Paso. So usually you see a drop off, like a larger drop off than most teams, because you go from El Paso to Petco, which is like right now like the lowest, like basically being affected the most by the park of like any year because the ball's dead now too, on top of everything. But early season Petco, the ball does not travel. And in El Paso, it's the exact opposite. You get, you're way up there. So it's similar to like Colorado kind of field. But Brent Rooker, he has 9 home runs and 92 at bats right now, hitting 250, almost a 600 slugging. Like, you definitely see the power numbers there. A lot of the thought on when they traded for him too was that he would be a guy that could be a depth outfielder for this team that could get called up if people are struggling. They're going to work on his swing, make some adjustments, kind of cut it down. I believe that's what it seemed like they wanted to do, just because there was a lot of swing and miss in his game, especially last year. He struck out 70 times, and he didn't even have 200 at-bats at the MLB level. So he struggled a lot. I think he's the next guy on the list to get the call, and I do think that would be for a Mazara or Azokar. I think those are like the two guys. If they got sent down, Rooker would be the next guy up. As far as Ruiz goes, his entire season so far has been in Double-A, so hopefully he's going to get some at-bats in Triple-A, get the call up there. I think a lot of people felt like he was the guy that was going to get promoted with Mazara getting promoted. That's what I thought as well for this one. Not sure if that's confirmed yet either. But looking at his numbers, he has been an absolute monster. He's been getting hype like really since the season started as like kind of a breakout candidate too. I think some other people were talking about him early on. We never really talked about Ruiz too much, to be honest. But now we have to, because he's hitting 340, he has over 1,000 OPS in AA. That's fantastic. So looking at those numbers, he's another guy like on the list of September call-up later in the season. I guess we didn't even bring up CJ Abrams. Also, Isaac, I just saw that right now. Another guy like late season could get some more action. And then the final guy you brought up was Luis Campusano. So looking at Luis Campusano, I think the thought is, okay, he's been floating around, getting in the MLB, not getting in the MLB because he got called up for a little bit in 2020 and a little bit in 2021. We have to remember, too, is in 2020, the rosters were like expanded, so they could bring him in. He didn't really get many at-bats. We saw a lot of that with Luis Campusano, where he came up and he had like, I don't even think he has 50 at-bats yet at the pro level. It's like, or like just right around there. So he's barely played in the pros. So I think a lot of people have a sour taste in their mouth because of that. Isaac, you brought up the real issue, though. The real issue is that it doesn't seem like he's all there defensively yet, and that's why he's been stuck in AAA right now. He's just sitting there. He's hitting like 330. He has over a 900 OPS. That was basically last year. He closed out for like months and months because when he first got demoted to AAA last year, he struggled for a while, and then he was super hot for the last few months of the season. He balled out. They never called him back up. So now we look and we're like, all right, what is he doing there? He's 23 years old. He's ready to come up. The bat's projecting, like we've seen him do it. He's proven that he can do it at the AAA level, but they don't want to bring him up. And then there was a report, I think it was on a podcast by Robert Murray, I want to say was the name. He basically said that teams around the league, they don't value him as high as they used to. And so just a lot of question marks surrounding Luis Campusano. We'll see how it works out. I think that if there's an injury to a catcher, an injury to either Voit or Hosmer, I think he's the guy that gets called up. But outside of that, I think what the Padres are doing right now is they're kind of banking on, all right, we're going to rock with Nolan Alfaro, and next year he's going to have to win a spot. And I think that's where they're at. So we're going to see how it's going to play out, but that's kind of where I'm at with this team. But Isaac, anything else you want to add on Mazara, Cano, any of these other guys?
No, not really, man. I mean, you brought up CJ Abrams. I didn't really get to talk about CJ Abrams. I just kind of think it was like he didn't get enough at bats, and he's kind of low on the pecking order right now, especially when Fernando comes back. Fernando should get at bats before him. Kim should get at bats before him. Crone, of course. I just don't think there's a spot for him right now unless you want to plug him in the outfield if a spot were to open up. I think he's more of a next year kind of guy. I don't remember what his ETA was supposed to be. I think it was actually supposed to be this year, but I mean, COVID happened. He had a leg injury, so things happened to him where it should have. I mean, his expectations should have been pushed back an extra year. So be a little patient with CJ Abrams. I do have a feeling he's going to get talked about a lot at the trade deadline. I think he's going to be a pretty prominent name among other teams, especially with AJ Preller's aggressiveness and trying to get other stars. So I think he might be a name. I also think Ha-seong Kim is going to be a name that gets brought up at that trade deadline also. I don't think Jake Cronenworth will be, even though he's starting pretty slow. I kind of think you're selling Jake Cronenworth at his lowest point if you were to sell him. Yeah, I'm bringing up trades, I know, because trades are, of course, always a hot commodity in Friar Talk and Padres, Friar Faithful in general. But yeah, man, there's nothing really else to say about the guys that we mentioned. Rooker, power hitter, strikes out a lot. You're going to have to deal with that. Essentially, Dollar Tree Joey Gallo, I guess you could say. You got Mazara, who's had decent success in the past, not very much recent success, and this is kind of like a Robinson Cano Jr., except I expect better. And then you got Campusano, who's just stuck down there because he does have deficiencies in his defensive game. So I don't know, man. Hopefully, I mean, obviously we're all rooting for Campusano the most. Rooker, we've seen him hit some bombs. Hopefully we see him hit some bombs in a Padre uniform soon. But outfield's actually somewhat producing right now. So hopefully we keep that up.
Yeah, and we'll have to see what happens with Grisham. You brought up the numbers. They definitely are inflated because he had 2 home runs, which has such a small time span. But he has been hitting the ball harder. You hope that Myers is coming back healthy soon. You hope that Mazara can be that depth guy because that's kind of what he was fighting for in spring training, was to be that depth guy. And he basically got beat out by Jose Azocar. But then you look at his numbers in AAA, kind of like, all right, going to force my way onto the roster with how good I'm playing. So we'll see how it plays out. We'll see what happens with Luis Campusano, CJ Abrams, all these other prospects that we've mentioned. You did bring up the ETA. Both of Campusano and Abrams ETAs are 2022. We've already seen them. I think that their like real timeline is probably next year, which is also interesting because Robert Hassel's ETA is 2023 as well. So maybe next year you get an influx of guys. I mean, we've been kind of waiting that for a while of when are all these guys going to get called up. Mackenzie Gore kind of got pushed back a little bit, but now he's here and look how good he is. So like when you kind of get like a little impatient with the guys, I think that's what you have to do. But I think that's going to do it for today's episode. So thank you all for listening. We will talk to you guys tomorrow. Going to talk a little bit about Blake Snell, I think, going to have a couple other topics. And then on Sunday, after this Brewers series, we will be going live. Hopefully the Padres are able to either split the series or win the series. It's a tough one. I do have to say the one game I'm super, super pumped about, Corbin Burns, Joe Musgrove. That's a pitching matchup of the year so far. So super hyped for that. But we will see how this all plays out, and we will talk to you guys live on Sunday and also with 2 segments over the next 2 days. So thank you so much, and we will talk to you then.